if you think about, again, if we come back to the definition, right, we're talking about who our competitors are and how we're different and what our unique value is, and therefore what market do we compete in. None of those things are static. So, your positioning exists in a system, but the system is always changing. So, your competitors are changing, their products are changing, they're getting new capabilities. In some cases, they're doing acquisitions, they're moving in and out of markets. At the same time, your customers are changing and their attitudes about things are changing. And often that will have a big impact on your positioning. Like, I worked for a company where our positioning was all around helping mid-sized businesses make more revenue. And so our positioning was really around that. And then the great financial crisis hit, and everybody switched from being really worried about making more revenue to being really worried about controlling costs. And so we had to make this big switch on account of that. You've seen outside things like government regulations, like GDPR, things like that, can actually impact how a company's positioning. So your competitors are changing, your market's changing, your own product is changing. So you're getting new capabilities, there's new things that your product can do. And often all that stuff together can result in positioning that used to work doesn't work anymore. So you need to have to be constantly checking in on it. You can't just set it and forget it. Now, that said, I've had products I've worked on. I was just having a conversation last week with some folks, and I was talking about a product I worked on. It was my first product I ever repositioned 22 years ago. And while we were having the conversation, it's now owned by SAP. So we flipped up the page in SAP, and that positioning has barely changed. Like 22 years later, the thing's like almost $1 billion product line, and it hasn't changed. There it is, practically the same words. They talk a little bit about, Internet of Things, because that's trendy. And before we were talking about mobile, but basically the same thing. Whereas I have other companies I've worked with, like I had one where we had this great positioning, but it was really reliant on us positioning with and in contrast to MySQL. And then they got acquired by Sun, and it's 6 months later. So we had to blow up the positioning and redo it all again. But then we had this cool thing going on with Sun. So we did some neat positioning with Sun, and we were all happy with that. And that was good for about 8 months. And then Sun got acquired by Oracle, and Oracle made a lot of really negative noises about what they were going to do with MySQL. And we're like, okay, well, that's out the window. We threw that one out the window. So in that one, we repositioned it 3 times in less than 2 years. So it's hard to predict how long your positioning is going to last.